I was in the middle of finalizing the quarterly report when Lucas burst into my office. No knock, no warning, just the sharp click of the door and a stare meant to unnerve. He slammed a stack of papers on my desk. "We need to talk, now," he snapped. I looked up, meeting the smirk on the face of the man who had never noticed me unless he needed coffee or scheduling. Lucas Grant. He thrived on power plays, on reminding everyone who wore the suit. Stillness came easily to me. I set my pen down and gestured to the empty chair. He didn't sit, he loomed. "The board has decided to shake things up. We need leadership, not spreadsheets," he said, as if reciting a corporate manifesto I hadn't memorized. Heat crept into my cheeks, but my voice stayed calm. "You're firing me?" I asked. He leaned in, eyes glittering. "We're letting you go, effective immediately. No warning, no performance review, no mention of the department's record-breaking growth." I paused. "May I ask why?" I managed. He flicked through his papers like they bored him. "You lack vision. You follow instructions. You don't lead." He paused, savoring my reaction. "And frankly, this industry needs confidence. Something you haven't demonstrated. A barb wrapped in corporate fluff." He saw me not as talent, but as a placeholder. I nodded. "I understand." His eyebrows rose at my composure. He expected tears or fury. Instead, I rose, extended my hand. "Thank you for the clarity." He shook it, then turned and left, triumphant. I watched the door click shut and exhaled. My pulse was steady, my hands still. Because Lucas didn't know what no one in that building knew. 2 weeks ago, everything changed. Something powerful had come into my hands. I smiled as I slid out, my phone, and texted one word: "Now." A single reply blinked back: "On it." 2 weeks earlier, I stood in the mahogany-paneled office of our family attorney. Mr. Harrington's office smelled of old leather and ink. He slid a sealed envelope across the desk. "Not to be opened until your 33rd birthday," he said, voice gentle. "Your father arranged it himself." I stared. 33rd birthday felt distant. What could be inside? A birthday card? A note? His lips twitched. "Not a moment before," he repeated. My father had built this company from scratch. When he passed 5 years ago, Lucas swaggered in. Fresh MBA, polished pitch, and a board hungry for profit. Over time, he rewrote culture. I stayed, loyal to Dad's memory. But part of me wondered if I'd stayed too long. On the morning I turned 33, sunlight poured through my apartment windows as I eased the envelope open. Inside lay a letter in my father's precise handwriting and a notarized trust document. My heart pounded as I read. "Dear Alex, if you're reading this, you're ready. I held 85% of the company stock when I stepped down. Now those shares are yours, with full voting rights. Your vision will guide the future." I felt the room spin. Majority ownership, control, power, quiet, undeniable power. I called Mr. Harrington immediately. "Is this real?" He nodded. "Airtight. No public filings until you choose. But once you activate, it's unassailable." I sank into the leather chair, absorbing it. "So I own this place." "Yes," he said. 85%. You decide when the board learns." That night, I barely slept. I played scenarios in my mind, walk into the boardroom, lay down the documents, watch their faces. But Lucas was unpredictable. He thrived on hubris. I needed a plan. The next day, I quietly drafted a notice for a special shareholders meeting. Single agenda, leadership review, no second vote required. I prepared certificates, voting records, performance audits, turnover rates, revenue stalls, complaint files. Hard data to expose Lucas's carnage. For 2 days, I vanished. HR left. Frantic messages. I ignored them, emails piled up. I brewed a quiet satisfaction at my inbox's silence. On Monday morning, I slipped into a corner cafe, ordered a cappuccino, and met with Mr. Harrington. He handed over the final draft. "Ready?" I tapped the table. "Let's do this." By midday, the shareholders' notice was filed. Monday evening, I met Caroline Winters, the trustee who safeguarded my father's shares. She slid a folder full of certificates across her desk. "He's built on illusion," she said. "Time to show the board the truth." We smiled at each other. We knew Lucas's downfall was imminent. Tuesday dawned crisp and bright. I chose a charcoal suit, sharp lines, understated elegance. I rehearsed lines. No speech, just a calm assertion. Of fact. Facts didn't stutter. At 8:50 a.m., I arrived at the lobby. The receptionist gave me a double take, then nodded. I pressed the elevator button. Quiet confidence felt new. On the top floor, Mr. Harrington met me by the door. They're in session. I straightened my jacket. Perfect. The boardroom. Door was ajar. Inside, Lucas stood at the head of the table, flanked by nodding board members. He was mid-sentence when I stepped in. Silence crashed. He froze. I laid the folder on the table. "Good morning. Am I interrupting?" He blinked. "This is a board meeting. Staff," I cut him off softly. "I'm here as a shareholder." I lifted the trust document. 85% majority. Filed, notarized, effective at the stroke of midnight on my birthday. Board members exchanged glances. Mr. Dalton, the one man still loyal to my father's legacy, adjusted his glasses. "Is this accurate?" I nodded. "It is." No flourish, no spotlight, just the weight of truth. Lucas's face flushed. "This is absurd. Why would your father?" "Because he trusted me," I said. He knew what integrity meant. A board member's phone buzzed. The corporate secretary scanned the papers. Lucas's grip on the table tightened. I opened the performance report. Turnover is up 42% in 2 years. Employee satisfaction down 36%. Revenue flat in a boom market. Their eyes flicked to the graphs, to the quotes from exit interviews, to the invoices for Lucas's lavish retreats. All signed under his watch. He stammered. "You're twisting data." "I'm presenting it," I said. I placed the final motion on the table. I move for removal of Lucas Grant as CEO, effective immediately. A hush. Then Mr. Dalton cleared his throat. Seconded. He looked at Lucas, then back to me. In accordance with bylaws, the motion passes. Lucas stared, mouth open. He stormed out without a word. The door thudded shut behind him. For the first time, he looked powerless. I exhaled and turned to the board. This company deserves leadership, not ego. Heads nodded. The weight lifted. From my shoulders. I wasn't just vindicated. I was home. That afternoon, I called an all-hands meeting in the old atrium, the same place Lucas once used as his personal stage. People filed in hesitantly, some hopeful, others wary. They remembered the promises that faded into empty pep talks. I stepped to the front, no slides, no notes. "I was fired last week," I began, voice calm. There was a ripple of surprise. A few chuckled. Tension eased. They told me I lacked leadership, that I didn't fit the mold. I paused. But leadership isn't volume or bravado. It's vision, respect, and lifting people up. Eyes connected. I saw relief, curiosity. I shared my father's dream. A company built on collaboration, not command. I invited questions. I listened. Every comment, every concern I recorded. Over the next days, I met with teams, from finance to janitorial. I learned about broken processes, stifled ideas, unacknowledged successes. Then I acted. I promoted Naomi to head of client outreach. She'd been doing the work for months. I brought back Ravi, whose product designs were shelved under Lucas's whims. I restructured HR so that complaints became catalysts for change, not whispers in dark corners. I launched the People First initiative, recognition boards, cross-department workshops, transparent promotions, no more whispers, no more box-checking diversity. Real growth. One evening, I walked the corridors alone. The break room buzzed with laughter again. Desks were decorated with photos and plants. I paused by the whiteboard in engineering. In red marker, she came back, underlined. Twice. I smiled. That meant more than any title. A week later, I moved into the CEO office. I didn't need the corner desk or the oversized windows to feel powerful. All I placed on it was one framed photo. Me and Dad on opening day. I sat and opened the quarterly report. Customer satisfaction up 27%, retention up 45%, revenue at a 5-year high. And most importantly, for the first time, it felt earned. That afternoon, Maya, now head of client outreach, knocked softly. "They're waiting," she said, eyes bright. I stood, smoothing my jacket. "Let's go." The boardroom was transformed. Half the seats held new faces, women, younger members, voices that had once been silent. Richard Chen, our new strategic advisor, nodded once. "Please," I spoke without notes. "Thank you for believing in change. My father built this company to honor people. Today, we finally are." A warm applause followed. Not perfunctory, but genuine. I left the podium and walked the room, shaking hands, sharing smiles. Later, I wandered the halls again. Developers hunched over prototypes. Marketers huddled over campaigns. The energy was softer, brighter. People stayed late because they chose to. They felt seen. As I passed the reception desk, the receptionist looked up and said, "Good afternoon, Ms. Patel." I smiled. "Afternoon." I rode the elevator down, heart full. Outside, the city moved on, unaware that a quiet revolution had taken place in a glass tower. I stepped into sunlight, knowing one thing for sure: humiliated or honored, led or leading, the journey mattered less than the legacy I was rebuilding. And as long as people believed in the vision, the company Dad started would thrive for generations to come.